This is Nikhil Sharma. I'm delighted to be joined by Ollie Brockett for LowKickMMA. We're going to be breaking down Dana White's Contender Series, Week 7 for 2022. Ollie, I'm very excited to go through this card with you. Let's start from the very top with Rodolfo Bellato versus Vitor Petrino Salvo, the light heavyweight main event. What are your thoughts on the fight?
I think it's the best one on the card. Dana White's definitely got it right. It's a stacked card, and a lot of fights could have been the main event, but it's this one, and I think it's the right one. It's a rematch from 2019 when these guys faced off, and it ended quite quickly with Vitor Salvo knocking him out with one left hook in the first round. It's his only loss on his record, Bellato's record. But this fight is an interesting one. They're UFC ready. The big hitters at light heavyweight. Bellato's been, I think he's fought at super heavyweight even one time in his career. And it goes to show with him only being, he's not been out of the first round apart from his loss when he lost in the first round. But he's got great takedowns, powerful takedowns, really good combinations. He's really good on the ground. I think he's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, which Salvo's not. And I see the gap in skill coming on the ground. I think Bellato's going to be smart, going to take him down early, going to make him think about the takedowns. And it's just a question if Salvo's good enough and he's got trained hard enough to get up from this, because Bellato's not an easy guy to just chuck off you with your hips. He's a heavy guy. He shoots loads of shots on the ground. He's got a lot of wins by ground and pound, knockouts. I don't know, man. It's going to be an interesting one because obviously he's been knocked out by him before. This is the only guy to switch his nights off. It's one of them. It could mess with your head, but I think Bellato is just more well-rounded, more polished, and he's just quite frankly a beast. And that's not me hating on Salvo. I think he's got great power, great stand-up, good kicks, but Bellato, what a fighter.
Yeah, 100%. Bellato does have more experience. And his only loss did come against Salvo. Salvo goes into the fight undefeated. Will he come out undefeated? That's the big question that we have here, right? Like you mentioned, Bellato definitely will submit you. Salvo cannot submit you, at least not from what we have seen from him so far. So I do feel like Salvo will be relying on that one-shot KO. Looking back at their first fight, 3 years is a long time. Bellato did not, I feel like, get to display his whole skill set, because he was walking him down, he was being aggressive, and he got caught. It wasn't like they were trading and he was a better fighter. You can get caught in MMA. So he would be going into looking to avenge the only loss on his record. Again, not to take anything away from Salvo, his power is insane and he could repeat the history with another knockout. It's also interesting to note that UFC is not only looking for great fighters, they're also building storylines right from the get-go. That's why this is the main event, even though there are amazing fights on this card ahead. Let's take a look at the co-main one, the welterweight bout between Gabriel De Souza Bonfim versus Trey Waters. What do you make of that one, Ollie?
I think the well-rounded fighter, it's already given. It's Bonfim, 12-0. He's had 8.5 years of experience, 8.5 years, sorry, not 8.5. But, he's got this boxing style. His brother's fighting on this card. They're both, four belts in boxing. But they've also got this great jiu-jitsu ground game, and it's not a surprise, with them both coming from Brazil. But at welterweight, he's fighting a guy with Trey Waters, who's just coming off a knockout at PLFA, where he was able to find a flying knee. And it was an explosive knockout, but in that fight, he was getting outstruck. He was showing his weaknesses, but that's just what type of fighter Waters is. He can catch you like that. He's got some power, but I just doubt his ground game in this one. Bonfim's just too technical. He's going to find success on the feet, and I don't know, Waters could shoot for a desperate takedown, and it could be night. Bonfim's going to jump on that choke. I don't even know how he's got 9 submissions on his record and all of them chokes. This guy's, he's a snake. He'll wrap around you.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the more uneven matchups on paper. Bonfim has 12 fights, twice as many as Waters. Bonfim definitely has a very strong threat when it comes to with his submissions. That doesn't mean he can't knock you out. He can, but he has been more successful with submissions. I feel like he will be looking to fire shots to set up the grappling exchanges. He is especially good, and he always looks for your neck. He's either going to crank in a rear naked choke or a guillotine. If you look at his wins, he has maybe a couple of arm triangles or something, but mostly he goes for the neck. And that oftentimes comes after you rock someone, because then they have like all of their defense for grappling goes away. You know what I mean? Another interesting point I felt like was Waters has good grappling as well. Let's not take that away. He's just not as experienced as Bonfim is.
Yeah.
What's important to notice, Waters is 6'5". Bonfim is 6. So I wonder how that would affect the fight. You know, maybe Waters will be like, okay, I'm good at submission, but I'm way longer than this dude. Let me just stand there and strike with him, knowing he has that edge in land, you know? Waters is undefeated as a pro, but he lost his debut as an amateur. And then he had another loss. So it's not like he's totally undefeated or has that persona with him, you know? And another fight that I feel like would not go the distance. We can't. Like, Dana White just wants the judges there to enjoy the show like spectators and enjoy the finishes. That's what it looks like to me. Let's talk about the heavyweight fight of the night. Jimmy Lawson versus Kevin Szarflarski.
Yeah,
so Kevin and Jimmy, yes. How do you see this one going?
Well, Lawson, you know, you look at him, he's a big, heavy-set guy. You look at his record, well, especially recently, he's on a 3-fight KO streak, and with a combined fighting time of 1 minute 14 seconds, it's quite unbelievable. And he's also got another KO before that. But people forget he's a Division 1 wrestler from Penn State. He's got great power. And it's not even just with his punches, it's those takedowns. I've seen him. He literally sweeps their legs under them. They don't know what's happening. And then they're just caught with a barrage of bricks, I'm going to call them, to the face. But he's facing his toughest challenger. He's facing a well-rounded mixed martial artist, I'm going to call him. Someone that's actually fought at super heavyweight, open weight, multiple times in his career. You know, he's used to that power. He's used to facing these heavy guys, and these heavy guys lying on top of him at points in the fight. I see him being very tactical, staying out of the range of these power punches in the first round. I think if he's able to survive the onslaught in the first round, it's his fight. I don't think Lawson's cardio will keep up for him with 3 rounds, and especially the sort of pace and fight Szarflarski. Sorry, I'm really bad at pronouncing names, but if he's able to do that and, you know, annoy Lawson with his game, he's going to drag it out to a decision. I think this is the one where it will be a decision, despite the heavyweight name on it. I don't see anything much more than that.
Yeah, it's a fair take. It's a fair take, Ollie, and I would definitely agree with you on some points there. Kevin is the more skilled mixed martial artist in all areas of the game. When you look at it as a whole, I feel like he's growing as a fighter. He's still early in his career, but this is the point where he needs to make that huge jump up.
Yeah.
This would have went to decision. I could have seen this going to decision had it not been on Dana White's Contender Series. So I do feel like these guys know what's online there. You know, UFC desperately needs a heavyweight. The heavyweight division, come on, man. It's the heavyweight division. It has to be the most exciting thing in the sport. It really hasn't been that. So these guys have a big point to prove, a big opportunity ahead of them. Mr. Greedy Lawson, right? An interesting nickname there. He's still a huge threat. He, like you mentioned, has knocked out each of his last 3 opponents in under 40 seconds. That's why I think this is going to a finish. The guy has done that 3 times. What makes you think he won't do it a 4th time? You know what I mean? So that's how I'm looking at it, just with the stakes being so high as well. Lawson has faced a fighter of Kevin's height before, which could be a differentiating factor here, but he was not as big as Kevin is, right? Kevin is a big 265-pound guy. The guy he faced of his height was about 243, something like that. So I feel like Kevin can take and endure those bigger shots, which his previous opponents haven't been able to. What I find intriguing here is the game plan for Kevin. For Lawson, it's clear. Go out there and get that knockout shot. Kevin has so many tools at his disposal. will it make more sense for him to look for a submission, or will he be so confident in his striking abilities that he actually feels like he can go out there and knock out Lawson? Can Lawson show something, Kevin? Can Lawson show Kevin something that he hasn't seen before because he has way more experience, right? And maybe that's just his power. I don't know that yet. Or will Kevin show his experience with a finish on that night? But I tell you this much, Dana White wants a finisher, and these guys will get a huge bump up if they do get one.
Well, the thing is, I've read an interview with Lawson, and apparently he's had this shot before when during Dana White's is looking for a fight series, and he lost that fight. And he talked about, you know, being coached by Rockhold, having Dana White there, and it throwing him off his game. I don't know if that would repeat itself, or maybe it's given them a bit of confidence, you know, with that crowd there, and he doesn't care. He's there to knock this guy out and get that contract. You know, he is greedy after all, you know.
Yeah, he does need to go in with a fresh mindset and live up to the nickname there. Let's come to the lightweight fight of the night. Ismail Bonfim versus Nariman Abbasov. Ollie, what do you think about this one?
This one, as I said, you know, any fight could be the main fight on this card, but this is the one I was rearing to. These are two guys with records that you'd look at and you'd think, why aren't they on a main card of a UFC event? These guys are very experienced, and they're at lightweight as well, which is a division in the UFC which is quite stacked at the moment. But these guys have every right to be there. You've got Ismail Bonfim, known as the Sledgehammer, and he is just that. You know, he's got great boxing, very slick striking. He doesn't overstrike. He's quite a technical striker for his age. He likes to read his fighter, which makes him more dangerous of anything, because he's got the power, he's got the striking ability, and he's got the ground game to go with it. But you can't overlook Abbasov. Is that how you say it? Abbasov?
Abbasov, yeah.
He's a very good fighter. He's 28-3, and that just speaks levels. He's got power, and he's been a pro for 10 years. But I see some of his old fights, and I just feel like his striking leaves him open a few times. And someone like Bonfim, who doesn't overstrike and is very precise in his shots, I feel like it's there for him to clip him and jump on him, and then jump on a, you know, rear naked choke or a guillotine. It's just whether he has that power, and I think that's the question. Oh, how powerful are these guys? You know, it's a big test, but in this one, I think I'm nearing to Bonfim. I feel like before he, you know, jumped up to lightweight, he fought a lot of fights at bantamweight and featherweight, and that's where all of his losses come from. Ever since making the jump in weight, he is undefeated. He's on an 11-win streak, and I feel like he's on the confidence. He's on a boost. He trains at a gym with Vicente Luque, like people like that. He's just, it's his time, I feel. But I would not be surprised with Abbasov coming out with a knockout victory. It's just one of them fights. It is Dana White's Contender Series.
Yeah, man. What's interesting to notice as we get to the lighter weight classes, look at how much more experience these guys have. Did you know what stood out to me for Ismail Bonfim is he's actually fought Renato Moicano Carneiro.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, and that was his last loss. He hasn't lost since. He lost that fight in July 2014, 8 fucking years ago. And that was by submission. Come on, it's Moicano. We know how good that guy was back in 2014 and on his way up. So that's noteworthy. Another thing that I noted was Bonfim's record of 3 losses could be very misleading. The guy had 0 amateur fights. He was thrown right into the fire from the get-go. He suffered 2 early defeats after winning his debut, but he proved how dedicated he is for the sport by improving, and he kept showing up. I mean, holy shit, the guy's 26-year-old. He's 26 years old, and he made his pro debut in August 2011. What was he, like 15 years old at the time?
12 years experience. It's crazy.
And he's just 26. Imagine the future he could have in the UFC. It's great matchmaking by the promotion here. Nariman Abbasov, on the other hand, he has improved a lot. He also had an early start, but not at 15 years old, you know. He has recently become more of a finisher, I feel like.
Yeah.
Ollie, he would go out there, test out, get more decisions, go to the judge scorecards. But if you look at his last 10 fights, only 2 of them he has won by decision. Rest have all been finishes. His last opponent, the corner threw in the towel. He put on such a beating on the guy. He's got knockout power. He's not bad with submission, and he has no problem going to decisions. I feel like Abbasov could have pulled this one out of the hat. But you know what? Ismail Bonfim has a challenge on his hands. Abbasov could dictate where the fight goes if Bonfim is not careful. And that, I would say, is the key for both men. Abbasov needs to assert his dominance, whereas Bonfim has to go there and prove he's ready for the best of the best.
Yeah, I think Abbasov, as you said, he'll have to come out early and make Bonfim recognize his power. Despite his technical striking, I just feel like if you make someone aware of that power, they're going to be second guessing every shot they're going to be thrown against you. So that's why MMA is just one of the best sports in the world. You can be the most skilled, but one hit hits you and you're gone. You've lost the fight and you're deemed a loser. It's going to be an awesome fight.
Yeah, very excited for this one, and especially what the future would hold for whoever comes out on top. Now, let's talk about the only women's fight on the card, the women's flyweight bout between Teresa Bleda and Nayara Arnaud Maya Correa. What do you make of this one, Ollie?
Well, I won't lie. I had to do a bit of research. I hadn't heard of either of these women before. However, I'm so glad I have been able to do some research because Teresa Bleda is a beast, up and coming. This is one of the next women champions, in my opinion. Just doing some research. She's 20 years old. Yes, she's only been a pro for 2 years. Yes, it's only a 5-0 record, but she's faced really, really good competition, especially in her amateur career. She faced Lucy Poldova, who just beat Yan Wu at UFC 278, and that was during her amateur career. It's just nuts. She's 5'9" for the flyweight weight class. She's long. She's got great takedown pressure, and it's just a constant pressure. It's like almost like a Kobe Covington type wrestling. You know, it's never ending, the cardio, and keep on making you think of submissions, throwing shots on you, making you think of everything possible. She quite literally is a well-rounded mixed martial artist for a 20-year-old woman, and she's facing someone that I feel is just going to be in the deeper water in this fight. It's not me dissing her, you know, whole overall game. It's just Bleda, I think, is just levels, and I think at her age she's just ready to take that next leap. And I think if the UFC are to sign her and she's to get the win, we're looking at it, you know, she's going to be ranked very soon. She has to. She has to be fed a better competition, and she's going to deliver, in my opinion. The sky's the limit for this girl, definitely at flyweight, and for her size, she's going to be a bully.
Oh, wow. Big words there for Bleda, who you back to be the second Czech champion in the UFC, right? So, yeah, not gonna lie either, man. Before I talk about the matchup here, it does feel like the UFC is trying to feed Correa to Bleda, and that's not because she's just that much better than her. It's because she's 32 years old. Didn't Dana White say that he's not interested in 32 years old? Like, it doesn't mean that he's not gonna sign a 32-year-old fighter, but it does mean that she has more to prove. She needs to give him a solid reason. Correa had a more recent outing, so Bleda will need to counter some ring rust in that angle. But like you mentioned, Bleda is 4 inches taller at 5'9" and could use it to her advantage. One thing that I will say definitively is I'm not sure if I want to bet on this fight. I know that Bleda is she has the stats in her favor, you know. Although there are so many things that point that Bleda could have a high probability of winning, the thing is, if Correa wins, where does she go from here? You know, what does the company plan? If she comes into the UFC at 32 years old, she doesn't have a long time to get to the title or any of those plans. Will that factor into the UFC? And they could be like, oh, we can't really put our marketing resources behind her. Because let's be real, it's a sport. We love MMA, all that bullshit, but UFC is going to do what's best for business. Yeah. It comes down to how serious both these ladies are. motivation can counter a lot of things. If Correa really wants a future in the sport ahead and at the highest level, she could pull off a win. But like you mentioned, thanks point that Bleda is going to come out on top of this one. Yeah. So to wrap this up, Ollie, if you have any other thoughts regarding any of the fights on the card.
Oh, sorry. Well, Bleda, yeah, I think she'll get a finish. I think you look at the main fight, you're looking at a finish as well. And you're looking at the heavyweights, and that's funny enough. That's the one I think is going to go to decision. It's Dana White Contender Series it's always something. You're always going to see something. You just don't know what. And I don't know, man. It's just not something I'm going to be betting on. It's especially over the last few weeks. You just see the results of some of these fights, and it's not. You just have to sit back and watch as a fan. You just take betting out of it because these guys, Dana's bringing fighters into this Dana White Contender Series. He's bringing fighters he wants to see, and those fighters bring knockouts and they bring the grit and the grind. And whoever brings that on Tuesday evening is going to get a UFC contract.
100%. And I do feel like there will be more than one contract given out on this card. I feel like the heavyweight, the lightweight, and possibly the main event. These three fights are the ones that I'll be keeping my eye out on. Mm-hmm. If you're someone who likes to bet on these kind of things, keep following. And maybe don't bet a lot of money on one guy, maybe bet more money on both guys because you never know what's going to happen. Other than one fact that it's going to be a finish. I'm super excited for this one and I can't wait to watch it.
Me too, pal.
Make sure to subscribe to the LowKickMMA YouTube channel for all the latest news, event previews, and interviews with some of the biggest stars in MMA.